The moon hung low over the bustling town of Arigban as a loud beat echoed through the night. Deyemi, a young man with dreadlocks and a small tattoo on his wrist, had just moved into his new house and was throwing a housewarming party. His friends danced and laughed, filling the air with excitement. Next door, Adeya's parents exchanged worried glances. "This noise is unacceptable," her father muttered, shaking his head. "We need to call the landlord." Her mother nodded in agreement. "I'll check on Adeya first. She shouldn't be listening to this bad music." Adeya, who had led a sheltered life, was wide awake. She listened intently to the strange, lively sounds coming from next door. Hearing her mother approach, she quickly closed her eyes and pretended to sleep. The door creaked open, and her mother peeked in. Satisfied, she closed the door, leaving Adeya alone with her curiosity. The following morning, Adeya's parents sat her down. "You must stay away from our new neighbor," her father warned. "He is a bad influence." Adeya nodded, pushing thoughts of the previous night's excitement out of her mind. She always obeyed her parents, even when they arranged her engagement to a man she did not love. She tried not to think about it, focusing instead on her chores and studies. But whenever her parents were not home, she found herself peeking through the window at Deyemi. He was undeniably handsome, and she watched as he unloaded alcohol from his car every Friday evening. She wondered what it would be like to live with such freedom. One sunny afternoon, Adeya returned from the market with a basket of fresh produce. As she walked past Deyemi's house, he stepped outside and greeted her. Startled, she tried to ignore him and quickened her pace. "Hey, I'm talking to you," Deyemi called out. "The least you can do is respond." Reluctantly, she turned around. "My father told me to stay away from you," she said. "Your father?" Deyemi asked, surprised. "Why? Who is your father and what did I do to wrong him?" "He says you are a bad influence," Adeya replied. Before Deyemi could respond, Adeya's father appeared, having seen them from the living room window. "What are you doing with my daughter?" he demanded, dragging Adeya away. "Stay away from her. She is a good girl. We are a good family and do not associate with your likes." Annoyed, Deyemi turned and walked back into his house. Despite her father's warnings, Adeya couldn't stop thinking about Deyemi. She had never met anyone like him. He was different, exciting, and she felt an inexplicable pull towards him. Her sheltered life had left her naive, and she didn't understand her feelings. One evening, as she watched him from her window, she saw Deyemi helping an elderly neighbor carry groceries. He smiled warmly and chatted with her, showing a side that contrasted with her parents' judgment. Her curiosity grew, and she found herself looking for opportunities to see him. One day, she mustered the courage to wave at him from her window. To her surprise, he waved back with a friendly smile. The following week, Adeya was in the garden when Deyemi approached the fence. "Hi," he said, leaning casually against the post. "I wanted to apologize for the other day." Adeya looked around nervously, but her parents were not home. "It's okay," she replied softly. "What's your name?" he asked. "Adeya," she answered, feeling a strange mix of excitement and fear. "Adeya," he repeated, smiling. "That's a beautiful name." They talked for a few minutes, and Adeya found herself opening up to him. She told him about her strict parents and her arranged engagement to a man she did not love. Deyemi listened intently, his eyes filled with understanding. As days turned into weeks, Adeya and Deyemi's secret conversations became a regular occurrence. They met whenever her parents were out, and she found herself looking forward to their talks. Deyemi was kind, funny, and genuinely interested in her life. One afternoon, Adeya confided in Deyemi about her fears and dreams. "I wish I could experience the world outside this town," she said. "But my parents have my life all planned out." "You deserve to be happy, Adeya," Deyemi said softly. "You should follow your heart." His words resonated with her, and she began to see him not as the bad influence her parents warned about, but as someone who cared deeply for her well-being. Their bond deepened, and Adeya felt a strong connection with Deyemi. She couldn't deny her growing feelings for him, but she was also torn by her loyalty to her parents. Despite their warnings, she continued to see Deyemi in secret. One evening, as they sat under a tree in Deyemi's yard, Adeya nervously confessed, "I think I'm falling in love with you." Deyemi took her hand and looked into her eyes. "I feel the same way, Adeya. But we must be careful. I don't want to cause you any trouble." "I don't care," she whispered, leaning closer. "I just want to be with you." As their relationship blossomed, Adeya's desire to explore the physical aspects of their love grew stronger. One night, under the moonlit sky, she leaned in to kiss Deyemi. He gently pulled back, his expression serious. "Adeya, we need to take this slow," he said. "I want you, but I don't want to rush things. You mean too much to me." She looked at him, her heart swelling with affection. "My parents judged you for your looks," she said softly. "But you're an angel." Deyemi smiled and kissed her forehead. "We'll get there when the time is right. I promise." Their secret meetings continued until one fateful day. Adeya's father, having grown suspicious, followed her and caught her with Deyemi. Enraged, he dragged her home and confronted Deyemi. "Stay away from my daughter," he shouted. "She is a good girl, and I won't let you ruin her." Deyemi stood his ground. "I care about Adeya. I would never hurt her." But her father was unmoved. He rushed the engagement he had arranged for Adeya. Adeya was to marry Ovie, a young man from a respected family. Ovie pretended to be kind and loving in front of her parents but was cold and manipulative when they were alone. Adeya had always been repulsed by him, but she couldn't bring herself to tell her parents the truth. Each visit from Ovie filled Adeya with dread. He tried to convince her to explore the physical aspects of their relationship, but she resisted. She remembered Deyemi's promise and his kind words, which gave her strength to refuse Ovie's advances. One evening, as Ovie tried to corner her, she pushed him away. "I will not do this," she said firmly. "I do not love you." Ovie's facade of kindness slipped further, and he glared at her. "You will be my wife, whether you like it or not," he hissed. Adeya felt trapped, but she knew she couldn't give in. She needed to find a way out. Days turned into weeks, and Adeya's despair grew. She missed Deyemi terribly and felt her hopes fading. One evening, she fainted in her room. Her mother found her and, in a panic, called for help. The family car wouldn't start, so they rushed to Deyemi's house for assistance. Deyemi didn't hesitate. He drove them to the hospital, his heart pounding with worry. The doctors examined Adeya and delivered grim news: she might need a liver transplant if her condition deteriorated further. Adeya's parents were tested but were not a match for the liver transplant. Desperate, they informed Ovie of Adeya's condition, but he refused to visit or get tested. Deyemi, determined to help, discussed his desire to be a donor with his friend, who tried to dissuade him. "I can't stand by and do nothing," Deyemi insisted. "I care about her too much." He got tested and was found to be a match. He promised to be a donor if the need arose, surprising Adeya's parents and making them reconsider their judgment about him. The next day, the doctor called Adeya's parents into his office. "I must apologize," he said. "There was a mistake in the lab. Adeya's samples were switched. She only had low blood sugar from not eating properly." Relief washed over her parents, followed by anger. They had been through an emotional ordeal for nothing. They hurried to Adeya's room to share the news. Adeya's mother burst into her hospital room, dancing with joy. "You are fine, my dear," she exclaimed, hugging Adeya and Deyemi. It was just a mistake. Adeya felt a wave of relief and happiness. She was released from the hospital, and her parents, grateful for Deyemi's help, invited him to their home. They apologized for their harsh judgment and thanked him sincerely. During Deyemi's visit, Ovie showed up, acting as if nothing had happened. He tried to continue the wedding plans, but Adeya, fueled by anger and newfound courage, confronted him. "I will not marry you," she declared. "You didn't care enough to visit me, and you tried to force yourself on me." Her father, hearing this, felt a deep sense of betrayal. "I trusted you with my daughter," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "Get out of my house." The wedding was called off, and Ovie was sent away in disgrace. A couple of days later, Deyemi returned to Adeya's home, his heart pounding with anticipation. He asked her parents for permission to court Adeya officially. "I promise to love, respect, and never hurt her," he said sincerely. Adeya's parents, having seen his true character, accepted his proposal easily. They had learned not to judge someone based on appearances. As Deyemi and Adeya's relationship became official, they took the time to build trust and understanding. Deyemi continued to show his respect and care for her, and Adeya's parents grew to appreciate him more each day. They spent time together, sharing their dreams and hopes for the future. Adeya's parents watched with pride as their daughter blossomed into a confident and happy young woman. Despite their happiness, Deyemi and Adeya faced challenges. Gossip about their relationship spread through the town, and some people still viewed Deyemi with suspicion. But they stood strong, supporting each other through the difficult times. Deyemi's friends, who had initially doubted his relationship with Adeya, saw the positive changes in him and began to accept and support their love. One evening, under the same tree where they had shared their first conversation, Deyemi knelt down and proposed to Adeya. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his voice filled with love and hope. Tears of joy filled Adeya's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, Deyemi. I will marry you." Their engagement was met with joy and celebration from both families. Adeya's parents had fully embraced Deyemi, seeing the goodness in his heart. Deyemi and Adeya's wedding was a beautiful celebration of love and unity. The town gathered to witness their union, and even those who had once doubted Deyemi came to wish them well. As they stood together, hand in hand, Adeya's father spoke to the crowd. "We have learned a valuable lesson," he said. "Do not judge people based on appearances. Take the time to know their hearts." The townspeople nodded in agreement, and Deyemi and Adeya began their new life together, surrounded by love and acceptance. Their story became a cherished tale in the town, a reminder of the importance of understanding, compassion, and the true meaning of love.